All right, we are right at the start time, 2 o'clock Eastern Standard Time, so we will begin. First off, good afternoon. I'm Jason Thomas, Project Engineer at America Makes, and your host for today's America Makes TRX Webinar Series. A little background on the TRX Webinar Series before I introduce our speaker. As America Makes continues its mission to expand and accelerate the footprint of additive manufacturing and 3D printing, this medium, called the America Makes Technical Review and Exchange Webinar Series, was created. By creating this platform, it allows the additive manufacturing and 3D printing community to come together and share knowledge and experience with a broader community. If you or your team are interested in presenting during the TRX Webinar Series, there will be a link to complete the request form at the end of our series today, or you can contact the America Makes TRX Webinar Series Administrator, Jason Thomas, directly. A few important notes before we kick off the series. At the end of the presentation, there will be an opportunity for a brief question and answer session. If during the presentation you have a question, please submit it in the Q&A space on your WebEx screen, and we'll ask it during the Q&A session. We will do our best to get all of the questions answered. Today's webinar is on real-time monitoring of additive manufacturing processes. Without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce our presenter, Shuchi S.K. Khurana from Adig Guru. SK is the founder and CEO of Adig Guru with a technical background in predictive analysis. SK has more than 20 years of experience during which he has successfully completed various projects, as well as he has managed and launched several products. He obtained his master's in engineering from Ohio State University and undergraduate degree from the Indian Institute of Technology, Kanpur. He also holds an MBA from Ohio State University. At his former employer, EWI, he commercialized weld prediction software, EWI Weld Predictor, and a virtual welding trainer product, which was successfully acquired by a large manufacturer in the welding industry. SK has previously co-founded a medical device startup company with a goal of social impact. He raised $4 million in venture funding for the company and took the company to clinical trial stage. SK has published several research papers in peer-reviewed journals and has more than 15 publications to his name. Besides being an entrepreneur, SK is an innovator and has 8 patents to his name. SK, I will now turn it over to you and your team.
Jason, can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay, great. Thanks
Sure.
a lot, Jason. Yeah, and thanks for an opportunity to give a webinar here. This topic is definitely very close to my heart. As you know, as you mentioned in your kind introduction, you know, I have a lot of experience in predictive analysis, as well as in my previous startup, we used a lot of 3D printed parts, and those were very, very helpful and useful for us in taking that company forward. So one thing is definitely came out there, and is that real-time monitoring of additive manufacturing process can be very, very helpful, right? So before I continue and start introducing the agenda, I would also give a huge shout out to Darshan Thakur, who's an application engineer with Addiguru, for helping me put this presentation together, researching various things, and working with me towards creating this presentation. So in this 1 hour, what we'll do is we'll talk about real-time monitoring. We'll talk about the economic advantages of it. Then we will talk about what efforts are going on in real-time monitoring, especially focused on powderbed fusion monitoring. And then a little bit about Addiguru. And then once we are done with that, we definitely wanted to listen to the users, how they are benefiting or how they can benefit from real-time monitoring of additive manufacturing. John and Jones from Volunteer Aerospace and Jacob from Elementum 3D, they both are going to spend a few minutes talking about what value they see in real-time monitoring. So now, obviously, we want to do real-time monitoring, but also sometimes historical data is very, very important and interesting. even in this case, in real-time monitoring, and even in other manufacturing processes, historical data is difficult to get and sometimes impossible. And then it's inconsistent across different machine types. And in additive manufacturing, we are using different kinds of machines, right, to achieve our goals. And then, so we have to do a lot of destructive testing, or in laser powderbed fusion, we are doing a lot of CT scanning. And, so we can do a lot better. And that's where real-time monitoring can help, especially in additive manufacturing, because we are capturing data layer by layer, right? However, in the industry right now, we are pretty much going like a car without headlights. So when it's an easy build, it's like driving a car during the daytime, everything is fine. When it's a little bit of difficult build, then it's like driving a car without headlights in the night. So we often fall into the ditch. We learn from where we are going and what not to do. Then we go in other directions, and slowly we learn, and we learn how to navigate it. And that's where real-time monitoring comes in. It can help you see more, and it's like headlights to your car. So whenever there's a difficult build, you'll be able to see what you're doing. You will stop yourself from doing the wrong thing. So because you will know more, right? And then you'll be more efficient. So basically, see more, know more, and do more. So that's going to be very, very helpful. Now, in-process monitoring obviously is going to be very, very helpful there. But there are different kinds of additive manufacturing processes, right? We have powderbed processes, which is laser powderbed fusion, electron beam, binder jet is a binder-based process, obviously. And then we have wire-based processes, DED and WAM. And then we have extrusion processes, FDM or FFF, as you may call it. And then photopolymerization processes, SLA, DLP, all these processes can be monitored. And what we'll talk later on in the presentation, that what are the commonalities there and how we can create a platform so that you can switch from one process to another, right? So that's what we'll work on, or we'll point out. But before going there, let me talk about in-process monitoring in general as an industry that we see. There's a lot of machine vision and infrared camera work that is going on in the industry, which is great. And that's how I foresee it as well. That's our vision too. So machine vision, and then you can also take data from other sensors like acoustic sensors, oxygen sensors, gas flow, and other data. You can combine it all together using deep learning, artificial intelligence, physics-based modeling, other kinds of analysis. But the important thing is you need to combine it with material science and the process insight to identify defects in real time, give high accuracy of it so that people who are running these machines can get notifications, can take actions. And obviously, like the headlight metaphor I gave or the car metaphor I gave, a lot of the industry is talking a lot about closed loop monitoring. The closed loop is going to happen, but that's like self-driving car. Let's get headlights first. Self-driving cars will also come, and they'll take time. It's not going to happen in this year or next year. It'll happen, but it won't happen all at the same time. So yeah, why not start using real-time monitoring, right? And there is an economic case for it. If you are a part producer, that how you can benefit from it. But as a machine maker or as other people who are consuming parts, you want to also understand how the economics help. So we try to look into various research if there's done or analysis that is done. There's not a lot of analysis that's published. Obviously, the knowledge is there in the industry. So one analysis we found, and obviously everybody agrees with it. I think, Jason, there is some noise from it. Maybe you want to mute yourself? Anyways, let's talk about real-time monitoring case. So this is the equation here, right? So the cost of a part produced is material cost, which is feedstocks and substrates cost, and then you have to pre-process. You have to design the part, you have to clean the machine, you have to prep the machine, and then you have to obviously you build the part on an expensive machine. So there's a huge capital cost, and then obviously you're spending a lot of power, and the whole setup is there, right? With all these machines, you have to have a whole setup in a certain way. And then you have to post-process, especially in laser powder bed fusion and other processes. You have to post-process, inspect the part using CT scanning or other methods. And that is an expense. That is a pretty significant expense. Now we try to put numbers into this equation, and they are so dependent on each and every machine, each and every material that you're using, each and every part that you're creating. It's difficult to do so. But we have a couple of examples to show you, and this has come with conversations with multiple people. And this is one of the examples one person talked to me about a while back. So I'm presenting it to you here. And the example is this. It's an Inconel print on a 3D on a laser powder bed fusion machine. You can call it a US machine or a Renesha machine, but it's a pretty significant size part. It's a 12-day print, so it's obviously has to be big part. And the cost to produce that part is expensive, a $20,000 cost to produce it. But let's say you're making that part. After you made this part, you then get it scanned, CT scanned, and you realize a pretty significant pores came in. And if you had a real-time monitoring solution to detect those pores, that you could have seen right after 3 days. That would be that. So instead of $20,000, you would be only spending $5,000. You would have gotten a notification, and you would have shut down the machine and said, okay, let's save those 9 days of time on this machine. That's equivalent to savings of at least $15,000, right? So that's a huge amount of savings that can be helpful. The other example is on a smaller scale. Let's say a Mark Forge machine. You're creating a part. It's a 2-day build, and or roughly it's a $2,000 cost to produce that part. Now if a delamination happens in the part, there are chances that you will not see that delamination even after the part's produced. You'll probably see a crack expanding in the sintering process. So now, if a delamination is detected by real-time monitoring solution and you get a notification, you would have only spent $250, and you would save this $1,750 of your time and money and everything. So that's a huge amount of savings, right? If you see this from the percentage standpoint, it's huge. So real-time monitoring can be very economically beneficial. And I would love to hear from you guys, in Q&A or later on, in how different people can foresee how it can be beneficial to them. Before I move forward, just want to point out that obviously there is an in-process monitoring that work is going on for different processes, and really good work is going on, for example, for DED and other processes. But we are, in this presentation, we focused only on powder bed fusion processes because even that we couldn't fit in all the work that is going on within this hour. So we focus on powder bed fusion, but definitely there's a lot of work going on for other processes. Anyways, let's talk about before we get into the real-time monitoring. We have to first understand what are the defects or the issues that come in a particular process, right? So one of the biggest ones is short feed. You have insufficient powder supply, and that can lead to incomplete part building or other recoater damage or other things. You have residual stresses elevating the part, and that is very important to know because the part can go out of tolerance pretty quickly. Porosity obviously is well known. You don't want porosity, or at least you don't want certain amount of porosity in certain locations. You want to know what you're getting, right? And then recorder streaking happens because of particle drags or other things. And then recorder hopping also happens because of damaged recorder blade or part elevation. So you would want to know what's going on. These are the major types. There are other things that can happen as well. Now, this map shows quite a bit of work that's going on in Powderbed Fusion real-time monitoring. However, it's not all-inclusive. There's a lot more work going on all over the world in different universities and different companies. Not all has been included here. This is what we are going to present. But if you notice, there are a few categories of it, right? There is melt pool monitoring and then optical imaging. And obviously, pyrometric profiling goes with melt pool because we are measuring the temperatures. And then there is also, within optical imaging and IR imaging, there is also profilometry happening. Like for example, FlightWare has done a good job of using laser profilometers to detect the flaw sizes. And let's start with them. Let's talk about in-situ profilometry done by FlightWare. And they use a laser profilometry to match the surface scan, and then they are scanning the powder as well. But they are primarily finding flaws using the melt surface scan, and the resolution is 0.4 microns, and accuracy is more than 92%. So, Oak Ridge National Labs, amazing work done there. A lot of work done there for many years, and it shows what they're doing. They have a layer-wise image analysis work done, and it's powered by artificial intelligence. They have collected so much data using different printers and cameras and materials that it's agnostic to that, and also they are basically doing it real time, right? And what they are saying is they don't require direct interface with OEM hardware, and they can provide visualizations and deep insights into printing process. And definitely, they after reading their papers, they have created worked hard on the neural network that they have created, and it's a very novel neural network that they've created, which helps with these accuracies and predictions. NASA has done a lot of work with IR imaging. And as you can see in the pictures here, they're using infrared laser path. They can detect spatter and layer elevation. They definitely want to detect anomalies and then close the loop. They definitely want that. They want sooner rather than later, and they're working on it. Dr. Bradley Jared who's at University of Tennessee now. Before that, he was at Senya National Labs. He has done really good work in pyrometry profiling. He's monitoring melt pool to correlate sensor data to porosity, and it shows that his layer data is assembled to create a 3D volume map as well, and then the correlation is pretty good here, as you can see on the graph on the right. So now talking about Renisha, obviously everybody knows that it's an OEM, provides some machines, and for laser powderbed fusion, and they definitely are capturing a lot of data. They're capturing melt pool data, they're capturing laser intensity data, they are capturing acoustic signals. I have seen graphs of oxygen data also being captured, if I'm not wrong. And the data is available for real time for further inspection analysis. I don't believe they are doing any significant analysis right now or sending any notifications. Velo3D, obviously, they keep their technology very close to their heart. This is from what's available from their website and their publicly known information. They definitely are using melt pool data for each layer, and obviously, Velo3D is also makes machines and sells machines. Basically, their algorithm predicts porosity based on the data collected. And the graph you see on the right is showing the probability of porosity in each and every layer. You probably can't read the y-axis, but y-axis is the probability from 0% at the bottom to 0.1% at the top. So all these points are in the right in the middle. It's like 0.05% of probability of a porosity, which means almost negligible, right? So they give you these probabilities. And then EOS is again a machine maker. Everybody knows about their melt pool monitoring software, as well as they do powder bed monitoring. They are using low resolution camera there, at least till now, and they capture pictures before and after fusion to help people look at it later on, in case that's useful. And they also capture melt pool monitoring, and you can use that for R&D purposes. Sigma Labs, again, is doing melt pool monitoring. They use photodiodes, and they have developed algorithms for anomaly detection based on the thermal profiling of their melt pool. And the data is also available to user in real time to tell them that there is a porosity has come in, or if any flaw has come in. Open Additive is another machine maker and OEM with the philosophy of creating an open environment in terms of other softwares and other hardware can plug in to their system easily. The picture, as you see in the right, they show multiple cameras and multiple sensors there. It says multiple cameras just looking down. They have a thermal tomography camera. They have a spatter camera. They have a record camera. Record is same as Powderbed camera. And yeah, so if you see here, and then they have another camera to watch the build process. Let's talk about their spatter tracking. They are doing, they're analyzing in real time, and basically they're trying to tell you what spatter anomalies occur. They also provide you melt pool statistics, right? And then with thermal tomography, they again detect spatter and anomalies that persist layer over layer, and then they run charts for statistical process control. So as you can see the charts on the right on the picture, that can show you some statistical process control. Now, I'm going to take this opportunity to tell you a little bit about Addiguru, what we are doing here, and how it could be helpful to the industry. Overall, our philosophy at Adiguru is to create a platform to help the whole industry, and that's what we are aiming for. And but in Adiguru, we saw that the biggest value within the industry could be for laser powder bed fusion process, because the parts are much more expensive and the failures can save a lot more money. So we started with that. We have built a platform, as you'll see some features here, and now we are further improving it for laser powder bed fusion as well, but also we are improving it for other processes like FDM. And we can talk more about it later as well. So now, first things first at Adiguru, what we are doing is, this is a picture of a US machine, and there's a camera. Sorry, this legend is a little bit off here. The camera is this mount here you see here. So the camera is installed on top of the machine, looking down into the build plate. And the camera is connected such that it's connected directly to a computer. It's not connected to the machine at all. It's just mounted on top of the machine looking down. We have built intelligence there to capture each and every layer information, which is a powder bed layer and after fusion layer on its own. There is no connection to the machine required. Here we are giving powder bed and predicted images. Sorry, powder bed images and after fusion pictures. So if you see, we are creating after laser pictures and powder bed pictures here, and if there is an issue, you see a predicted image show up. Every powder bed image runs through an artificial intelligence model, and artificial intelligence model then provides you. I don't have that. An artificial intelligence model provides you with the anomaly. An anomaly is shown from the artificial intelligence model. And then there are other features that are developed as well. One is you can see the time-lapse video of all your layers. It's not playing here very well, unfortunately. Anyways, it's somehow decided not to play on this webinar, which is okay. But basically, a time-lapse video shows one layer after the other, and you can analyze your whole build within a few minutes. So again, coming back here, as soon as you have an anomaly, you are sent a notification, and based on a notification, you can make a decision whether to stop the build or not. And that's how we're working on it. The other is you can see the video of real time. If you're at your desk, you can monitor the build at your desk. Not a problem at all. Another thing we have built in this is you can provide feedback. If it's a false positive or a false negative, you can provide feedback to us and or mark it that, hey, this was a false positive or a false negative. Another important thing is, which is very important in our industry, is the data that we are generating. We are generating terabytes of data, right? And when you're capturing layer by layer images, the data is not as much, but still, data is, if you're just generating like high resolution camera that we are using, you're generating about 30 gigs of data for every build, like for a decent sized build. That's not a huge amount, but still over time, it'll be like a huge amount of data, which you need to keep for a while. So we have developed a proprietary algorithm to compress these pictures by more than 90%. And that is using, and this obviously is technology developed for powderbed processes for now. And that can help us a lot. Over time, you just need to store data, and if you're compressing and decompressing those pictures, you won't lose image quality at all. So that is important. The other is we have a product roadmap here, and let's talk a little bit about that, as well as let's talk about open. We want our company to have an open system. By open system means our platform is open, in which we are connecting. It's designed in such a way that with APIs, it can connect to different softwares easily, as well as to different machines very easily. And that's what we are doing by connecting it to open additive machines right now, as well as we are connecting it to Authentize, which is an MES software for additive manufacturing processes. Just really quick talking about our product roadmap. For near term, we want to classify our issues properly. Properly means right now we are detecting as an anomaly. We want to be able to say, okay, this is a short feed, or this is a recorder streaking, and the accuracy level is very high, so that when you get a notification, you're sure, okay, this is happening, I need to take an action, or I need to ignore this. The other is we have a platform built here. Now we are taking this platform and also looking into how we can use it for extrusion processes, which is FDM kind of processes. Definitely we are going to be using IR monitoring and lack of fusion and hotspots monitoring, and then dimensional monitoring. In the long run, we want to do a lot more, like fatigue life prediction, faster parameter development using artificial intelligence. And then, as I talked earlier in my talk, we'll get to self-driving cars of closed-loop solution. It's going to take time, but we'll get there. And then microstructure and material property prediction, that would be very important as well, right? So, but that is also not easy. I have personally done microstructure prediction work. It's not as easy as it sounds. There are too many edge cases. So this is our overview of where industry is, and real-time monitoring technology is obviously very important to the industry. But it'll be good to hear from companies like Volunteer Aerospace and Elementum 3D, who are doing a lot of good research, building very state-of-the-art parts and materials as well, and they see a lot of value with the real-time monitoring, and that's why I've invited them to join me in this. And let's see if we can hear from John Aaron about volunteer aerospace, and then how do they see real-time monitoring can help them.
Thank you, SK. We'll just do a kind of a brief run through, just for those of you who aren't familiar with volunteer aerospace and kind of what our background is, what we do. But we're a woman-owned small business located in Knoxville, Tennessee, and we focus on advanced manufacturing, but particularly additive manufacturing within the powder bed realm. SK, can you advance to the next slide? So to give you kind of an idea of the capability we have, we're really known for large aluminum parts, or actually large parts in general, as we have the X-Line 1000 and 2000, so we can print fairly large components. We also have the two EOS M290s. We use these more for the serial production, large run sizes, things like that, but obviously smaller parts. And then more recently, we're bringing in machining and welding. But with SK's technology, what we've been trialing it on the EOS M290s so far, and our next step is to move that over to the X-Line 1000 to start working with it there. So looking at a much larger field of view, different recoder configurations. So there's a lot of different things that go into optimizing that to get the best result out. Next slide, please. This is just a brief run through of materials. We've looked at several materials with SK's camera. We've looked at titanium, aluminum, several aluminum alloys now, Marging 300 stainless steel, and tungsten. Next slide. So this is really kind of getting into a true use case. So this is a great example of how we were able to use this. And we use this in lieu of the EOS factory system. The small camera that they have mounted doesn't really provide a lot of resolution to allow us to see any real detail in the build, to know what's going on. Also, we don't get as much control as we do with the Addiguru system from how we organize the data, and then obviously the predictive nature of it. So what we've got here is a clip that gets put together at the end of a build. So basically, we're able to take all of our layer images and stitch them into a fly-through, if you will. So not a lot gets gleaned from this particular video. It's an easy way to illustrate, the type of pictures we're collecting throughout the build. But the major benefits we had during this project, and this is actually a piece of spaceflight hardware that we printed for Georgia Tech and NASA Marshall. And it'll be going on a probe for JPL to launch next year on the Artemis mission. Let's close that, yep. So really looking at the benefits, how did we use the camera? How do we use the software to really kind of benefit us? And really from the beginning, in the development stage, during our test prints, we were able to easily find, I should say, and get to a root cause analysis on some distortions that were happening in the part. So as we know, with titanium, residual stress is a huge issue. We actually had the part moving in the build, and we could see that after the fact. You could actually see the physical marking on the part, where we could tell, hey, it moved somewhere in here, but we didn't know really where and what led up to that. So being able to use this as kind of an investigation tool was extremely helpful. And this was a little bit before a lot of the prediction was built in. So we still had to use a little bit of manually scroll through the images, but from what we've seen lately, the predictive tool actually kind of lets us go straight to that area, and within 30 minutes we can reasonably tell what's happened, go through, make edits, changes, and get the next build going. The other thing we really use this tool for in this project is this is a manifold for a propulsion module, and really it's got some really small narrow passageways that grow throughout the part, and being able to go through and inspect those as they're printing to make sure we don't see any issues or any recoder interactions as those round passageways close out was tremendously helpful. We could confirm that those passageways are where they're supposed to be, that they actually show up, even the smallest ones. It gives us an extra layer of confidence before we actually take it to CT or any further analytical tools. And then lastly, because of the nature of this part, it had to be printed with a soft recoder. And the big thing for us is just checking to make sure there's no errors induced by a soft decoder. So any powder flicks or heavy layers being deposited, so having to burn through double the amount of powder, things like that, that could lead to a failure of X-ray or CT down the line. So we're able to capture all that at the time we've built the part. So when we're pulling it out, we're analyzing this data, we're able to glean a lot from this and basically be able to call the part good or not. What we look forward to in the future, and some of the things I think SK was hitting on, is being able to have dimensional analysis tools in it. Even if it's rough, it's just, hey, are we within the ballpark of where we need to be? Did we actually detect a physical movement in the part? Things like that. We're really excited to see into the future. So that's all I've got from my presentation. SK, give it back to you.
Thanks a lot, Jonathan. This is great. Thanks a lot for talking about how you would use real-time monitoring. Jacob, are you there? Do you want to talk about your, how you would foresee real-time monitoring can be useful?
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to start with kind of a discussion about who Elementum is so that you have context. So if you go to the next slide there. So Elementum 3D, we're developing new alloys and new materials for laser powderbed. In particular, aluminums, copper alloys, refractories, those sorts of materials. And so as part of that, there's a significant amount of parameter development, prototype printing to develop, information about down skins, up skins, all sorts of different pieces of the settings that someone would need to be able to take to a full printing method. And so that's an incredibly important part of, when we were first getting started, it was basically an engineer was sitting there watching the build in an initial parameter development and turning parts off as they were going. So as part of having real-time monitoring, it can be really important to at least identify, okay, these risky settings that we decided to go after that are on the same build, we can turn those off because we know that they are beyond what will be analyzable afterwards. So we can, I think, take bigger risks and move that window open further as to what settings we're going to be using and looking at by having a real-time active monitoring system. And I think that's an important aspect to our materials development process. So if you go to the next slide there. An important part of that is then quality monitoring and looking at our different systems. We have two M290s, an M400, and we just installed an SLM 280. And as part of that, we're looking at what are the differences between the different printers and what are the similarities, or how do the different printers react differently to different settings. And so that can be quite difficult. I mean, you hear a lot of times that it's simple enough just to move from one platform within the same family of printers, but for us as a materials provider, we have to be able to give suggestions and work on transferring the information that we've developed in one system to another system. And again, real-time monitoring can help give that feedback as to, okay, when we see this sort of defect, this is the response that we're expecting if we're able to move the parameters to a different direction, or it's giving us a sense of which direction to move for the next builds. But as I mentioned, with our ISO 9000 and the process of looking at quality improvements and being able to prove out, did you print this component the same way every time? I think, and maybe this is a strong stance, but I really think that's what's going to make additive manufacturing the next manufacturing method for every single aerospace component, because I feel like insurance companies are going to require something along these lines of being able to say, at least it was built without defects. And going back and being able to prove that is impossible with any other manufacturing technique. It's not possible to see what's going on in a die casting method or in when you're casting a large billet of material from a CNC. So having that sort of fallback for an insurance company, I think will be huge moving forward once we continue developing this process. And that's one of the reasons that we're really excited to work with Adig Guru. And others, looking at all sorts of different techniques and methods. As you see, we also have the EOS melt pool monitoring system, and there's pluses and minuses to every system that we're looking at and working with for materials development, for parts production when we're doing, our initial prototyping for different companies out of new materials, and for then follow up on if we can go back and look at those samples as to what were the defects and how do they relate to the properties of the material that we get out later. Relating that back to something that was mentioned earlier about, predicting what the mechanical properties will be or the microstructure. That's something that I think is coming along and is one of those dreams of let's go after that and find, can we predict what the properties will be from real-time monitoring and then being able to go back and look at that. I think that just requires a lot of data and a lot of time and information. So that's one of the reasons that we're excited to start diving into this as well. So while we're early stage working with Adig Guru, certainly it's something that we find is really important for our business in developing new materials and then proving out that those materials are consistent or being developed fully. And so, I think this is the technology that really needs to grow to make additives stand out from all the other manufacturing techniques that exist. And we'll see how it progresses, but I'm really excited about the future of in-process monitoring and then defect detection.
That's great. Thanks, Jacob and Jonathan, for jumping in and talking a little bit about what you see. And then, thanks for putting kind words about Adig Guru as well. And as you saw, real-time monitoring definitely from a user standpoint, definitely can be very significant, save time and money. And also, as you saw from Jonathan, you can go back and look into what really happened, all right? And every build is different, so advantages are different. Him talking about using, if it's a soft recoater, you have to be more cognizant. Okay, if it's working fine halfway through the build, probably it's great, but how do we keep looking at it? Can I look at it when I'm home at like 10 p.m. to just curious what's going on? Things like that could also be useful. And then, as Jacob mentioned, I totally agree that real-time monitoring is going to be super important for further adoption of AM processes, and with better real-time monitoring solutions, overall it'll benefit industry as a whole. So and that's where, like obviously we have started a company and we are building it, but we want to bring all the right, one monitoring solution is not going to be perfect and will not cater to the whole industry. There are different monitoring solutions that will be created for different stages of the build. And that all, if it comes together, that could be very, very useful. And overall, what we are doing is at the Aerospace, we are developing an open system so that it can be easily implemented with existing softwares, as existing research, as well as existing machines, and maybe new machines as well. And that's my appeal to the industry, and as well as OEMs and the other softwares also in the industries. Let's keep it open architecture. Let's work together, because overall, as the industry grows, it'll be beneficial to all of us, and it'll be a very exciting future for us going forward. So with that, I hope there are a few questions, and for myself or for Jonathan or for Jacob, please write your questions in the QA section of the WebEx screen. And also, I'm very happy to have answer any additional questions or have in-depth conversation. Also, if you want to connect with Jonathan or Jacob, please email me at sk@addiguru.com, and or you can email Jason, and we'll get you connected.
Yes, sir. All right. Thank you, SK. We'll now head into the Q&A session. If you have any questions for our presenters and you have not done so already, please go ahead and type it into the chat box. I do have a few questions here to start with. So our first question, are any of you doing research into DED processes and DED process monitoring? Do you have any thoughts on what that might look like?
Yes, so DED process and DED process monitoring is ongoing. There's a lot of academic work done. And DED processes, especially if you're talking about wire-fed ones, right? It's very similar to arc welding. there's a lot of work done on arc welding monitoring as well. So we can bring that technology and bring it into additive manufacturing technology. There's a lot of research done. There are a couple of startup companies out there who are trying to differentiate themselves by doing DED process monitoring. One of the companies' names I can think of is Form Alloy, and then what from Addiguru's standpoint, the way we have developed we first went after LPBF process. We are a young company, but our platform is ready to incorporate other processes into the play, and DED will be one of the things that we'll be incorporating in near future.
All right, thank you. Another question we have here. What are some of the things you specifically look for when researching build parameters for new materials? Are there specific artifacts that can be detected from an optical camera?
Yes, so from optical.
Go ahead. Yeah, I was going to say, if you'd like me to jump in, there's a couple of things that I think are really important. The first is the material spreadability. How is it spreading? Are there defects in the material as it's spreading? Those sorts of things can be really important, even when just verifying from lot to lot that materials are the same. But then beyond that, there's a number of things that can happen with different settings, as far as too much internal stress building up and then having corners pop, or having a very rough surface that is then, tends to be, if you get kind of this wavy surface, you're never going to get out of that wavy surface. So if there was a defect that caused a problem on one part and that caused, a collision with a recoater blade, the question is that then causing problems in other components that maybe are different parameters that would not have had a problem if it weren't for the part that had been contacted. So being able to pick out, this particular sample was the problem, and therefore the other samples in the other settings should still be pursued because they haven't necessarily been eliminated as options. So it's about finding false positives and false negatives as well, particularly when you have an array of settings that you're looking at.
That's great. Thanks, Jacob, for jumping in. Perfect.
All right, thank you. So another question here. How scalable are these monitoring platforms? Is this applicable to print farms, or is it meant for smaller research or operations?
I think that's where it is. The whole industry is expanding. We are getting into, we are going to have multiple machines with different companies of different brands. So that's very important, right? To have a monitoring platform that can be scalable, and that's where, for example, you saw research by Oak Ridge National Labs. Their software is can be used for multiple processes, all powderbed process, but can be used for different processes, but they can use it for using different cameras, as well as it can be a same experience for a user, right? And for different brands of machine as well. So and that's going to be very important. And like the way we have built Addiguru's platform is, it can be used for not only powderbed fusion systems, but you can collect layer by layer information for other software, other processes, as well as it's scalable. You can have if you have an API-based system, then you can have print farms, multiple cameras connecting to one big server and process all the information within that and help you that. Obviously, it needs to get there because the industry is getting there. So I'm not aware of any one software or one system that can be deployed in print farms today, but it's getting there. And that's where the exciting part is, that we are looking at service bureaus expanding, adding more machines. These print farms concepts are coming up, and that's very, very exciting.
All right, one more here. as earlier mentioned, or it was earlier mentioned that currently Addiguru can identify anomalies, but identification is not yet possible. Is there any reason why? There are few analytical models employed in the industry for data extraction and identification.
Yeah, I would love to have a conversation. Whoever has asked this question, so please reach out to me, and would love to have a conversation to understand more details here. But what we are saying is, from the amount of data we have collected, we can detect anomalies right away. We are doing it within 1 second, and then our next steps are to be able to classify those anomalies further at higher accuracy. We can do them right now, but the accuracy we need to increase so that we are more confident of putting in our production system.
All right, thank you. Let's see, and I think got one more here. Where do you see the limits of an off-axis camera versus on-axis camera or sensor?
So this is a computer vision question, actually. When if it's an off-axis camera, the beauty of most of the processes is that build and the camera distance is exactly the same. For example, laser powderbed fusion's process, the laser fusion and the powderbed is exactly at the same location, and the camera is also fixed. So what you can do is you can there's a process called calibration, or what you do is you put a checkerboard down there on the build plate before you start your build, and you just take a picture of it. And you can use a technique called homography, which actually corrects the angle of your picture. So you don't need your camera right at the perpendicular angle. You can, if it's very important for you to straighten up the pictures, you can do so. However, for the artificial intelligence to work, even that is not very important. So for you to be able to classify your anomalies or detect whether there is an anomaly or a flaw, you actually don't even need to be able to correct the angle. You can just, it's all about using the data to train your artificial intelligence in the right way so that even there's a little bit of skew in the angle, it'll be able to make the right detection.
Okay, and then following up on all of this in the presentation, so what is the cost for installing Addiguru set up on existing machines?
The cost for Aerospace is for laser powderbed fusion is minimal. It's about the capital cost is about $2,000, but obviously we can discuss more in detail in terms of how it costs you and how many systems do you need and things like that. But what we're using is industrial optical camera, which is less than $1,000, and then a computer, which is not a very high-end computer, but a normal computer that you would use, and that camera connects to that computer.
All right, thank you very much. So I think that's all the questions. So that will wrap up today's TRX webinar series. I would like to once again thank our presenters, SK, Jacob, and John Aaron. If you do have further questions for SK, please reach out to him directly at sk@addiguru.com. There will be a post-webinar survey going out to all those who participated. We do really appreciate the time you take to provide America Makes feedback so we may continue to improve and strengthen the additive community. And as a reminder, if you think you or your organization will be interested in sharing on the TRX webinar series, please fill out the form that follows the presentation, or you can reach out to me directly at jason.thomas@ncdmm.org. Thank you very much. Everyone have a great day.
Thank you, Jason, for organizing this, and thank you everyone for attending it. And thanks, Jaron and Jacob.
Thank you.